Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Following the last video, there was a huge amount of, frankly, a sentiment that appears to be unending, unrelenting, and endlessly repeating. Those damn sweaty players are ruining the game for me who works X number of jobs with Y number of kids and Z number of wives who can only get on and play 15 minutes per month if I'm lucky. Everything's too expensive, there's too much competition in the open world, and I've even somehow heard people say they can't find groups when, I don't know about you, but I've straight up not used LFG and have pretty much removed it from my bars since pre-patch, as it's a never-ending wave of spam. Notwithstanding the inevitable and new wave of mage boost spam, which is already well underway. Here would be a fix for all that, by the way, but with the weekly go at mages done, we can tick that off. People say others are rushing to the end, and I don't know how they are enjoying it. It's week 1 and people have cleared all of the content. Surely they will run out of things to do. I'm only level A, I've just done B, and of course, having a blast. You could honestly have a template for some of the comments at this point. Here is a rather novel idea. People who are playing a lot and smashing the endgame at this point in time, dare I say it, are enjoying the game too? I've heard people talk about Nier always being catching up in levels. Every single time I do a video about a certain phase of the game, there'll be many comments along the same sentiment. Even coming up to the Burning Crusade pre-patch, there were still comments on, well, I'm only level 52 on my priest and I started in phase 3, I hope I can make it the rest of the way. Sure, I get real life time constraints, but it's an MMO at the end of the day. At some point, if you always feel as though you're catching up, are you happy with what you're doing when you play and level? Are you worried nobody will be doing the content appropriate for a freshly capped character maybe? Will this video turn into another advertisement for saying join a guild, join a guild, join a guild, join a guild? Well, so long as they align with your interests in the game. Who knows? What I do know is that time invested should matter. Perhaps not to the extent of being the only relevant metric in the game whatsoever. A nice degree of skill and knowledge is healthy in the mix, but whether you put that time in over the space of a few weeks, a few months, or maybe even over a year, it will always add up in the end, and hopefully you can look back at your character, something you've grown right from the starting screen all the way up to the end of the current content, and face something that you can feel good about. Because the Burning Crusade is an MMO that respects the time you have to put into the game, whether you can mega no life it for a period of time or log in now and again. The systems that have come to plague retail in certain aspects are totally absent here. Not only does the game respect the time you have to invest into it, it's a game where you can reach a point where you can say, I've completed everything that I want to. And imagine this, it's perfectly okay to say, I don't feel as though I need to log into the game today, I am going to do something else. Hear me out. Dailies in Burning Crusade, cooking and fishing, they have a few different recipe rewards. The Shatari Skyguard, Ogrilla, Netherwing, mainly cosmetics or mounts. You don't need to do the reputations to improve the power of your gear or of your weapon. Badges from dailies are nice, sure, but it depends on your class and how much they can benefit from the gear that can be bought there, though they are kept relevant at different phases throughout the game. We have optional reputations as well, like Sparagar, which are pretty much optional. There is an absolute metric ton of good gear from just questing and taking part in group activities in the open world in TBC, and level capped players will be questing and doing group content for the whole expansion because it's a really good way to do quests after you get level capped. Especially those people who get boosted through the lobster farm in slave pens. This is one of the things that has become noticeable in retail ever since, well, there was a big push in it in the Legion expansion, and that is to create content that will empower your character that you need to make sure you're checking off each day, your emissaries, your world quests, your daily questing hubs, that give some scraps of the latest currency to upgrade the latest temporary power system that the game has. Torghast has become Choreghast. So many WoW YouTubers are looking back at Final Fantasy like that one meme right now because the game has created an environment where the players are so intensely fixated on having a constant stream of stuff to do in game, to be tied to the game, and for it to consume all their time. And with the amount of people looking for other things to do at the moment in anticipation of 9.1, it's kind of hard to say Blizzard aren't justified to create content which keeps you hooked daily. Literally. In Burning Crusade, unless you decide otherwise, quite a bit of the content is just on the side if you want something to do. You get your level cap, you start off your attunements. If you struggle enough with attunements or you don't have the time to get them done, well, guess what? In later phases, the attunement restrictions will be relaxed. Revered keys will be brought down to honored. and by the final patch, the majority of the achievements in the game will just be straight up removed so you can do anything you'd like to. You know what they say, the road to retail is paved with good intentions. People want to come back for Burning Crusade but didn't have time to level, we'll offer a level 58 boost. Players running out of content saying they have nothing to do, well, we can change dailies to fit that power gap. People can't find dungeon groups, LFG. Raids too hard to set time aside for, LFR. And those are just a few possible examples. Whilst the goal of getting more people involved is admirable, the ways it's gone about being done have shown issues over time. It's kind of like the top-end faction balance problem that retail currently has at the moment. How do you get more casual players to begin engaging with high-end content rather than taking the Horde Express over to the other side and having a massively higher pool of players to play with? How will the more casual player base in Classic find the grind to get their epic flying at level 70? Burning Crusade isn't cheap when you're first capping out a character, but I can think of a money-driven alternative that Blizzard seem as though they will take advantage of eventually. $15 isn't an all-access pass to all the content in the entire game, and it never should have been. In fact, I think this is one of those areas where this is gatekeeping, but in a positive way. Even a little story recap, like after Arthas was defeated in ICC, should have been sufficient for the advancement of the story moving forwards. Instead of cramming over 20 strangers together into a version of the content so far removed from reality that it has as many fail-safes in place as possible to ensure success through brute force and determination stacks. And whilst it's fine to run out of stuff to do, I hope that things aren't rushed as a result to try and meet the demands of people who do decide to play at this frantic pace, especially at the start of the expansion. I honestly think Classic was fine timeline-wise. Remember when Diamore came out a bit earlier than expected and people were starting to get kind of worried it would be rushed out and all over in no time. And whilst Classic was considerably faster than Vanilla was as a whole, I think that expedited timeline made sense. People play games much more differently these days than they ever did back then, though we've talked about that more than enough on the channel at this point. Finding that genuinely brand new player running about with a random set of talents and not wearing a dress as a holy paladin these days just feels so incredibly rare. I think a lot of people aren't playing the content just to revisit it again, but to tick off things which they never did back in the day. I know that's the case for myself personally. Back in actual Burning Crusade, the extent of raiding I did was through Karazhan, and the rest of my time was spent PvPing in Battlegrounds. I barely even did any arenas whatsoever because my connection was so bad. And you know what I had back then? That's right, a blast, I sure did. So though it's still early days and the content in BC is very much finite, could we just stop with the ex-players aren't having fun because they're playing more than me? You know, it reminds me of the old saying we used to have with RuneScape. Everyone with a lower level than me is a noob. Everybody with a higher level than me has no life. I mean, the game might be 15 years old now, but some things just don't change. Let me know your thoughts and all. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all on the next one very soon.